Hiya, as you can tell from the title, today's video is kind of different to anything I've done so far, and this has been requested by a lot of people because a lot of my friends saw how bad I was when I was going through my depression, and they kind of found it inspiring how in kind of a short space of time that I managed to point myself in the right direction. So I kind of want to share how I am living proof that things get better when they can't seem to get any better, so to speak. I'm a bit nervous about doing this as I'm aware that I'm probably going to get some hate, and it's not a laughing matter, and it's not something we should be joking about ever. I'm going to take you back to where my story kind of begins. So when I was 12, my dad was diagnosed with cancer to his larynx, which is in the throat, and we was told he was going to be alright, and he was. And then the night of the 20th of November, so the day before my birthday, he was taken into hospital and he couldn't breathe, and yeah, and he had to have an emergency operation to get like a tracheotomy done. We were then told about 5-6 months later that the cancer had returned and it had spread, and there was nothing that they could do to save my dad. I was 13 at the time, and kind of hit home because I was always like a daddy's girl. I felt guilty at this point because my dad was full-time in hospital, and since he'd had his tracheotomy done, I was terrified. He had this big scar, and it honestly scared me, and I wish that I could go back and tell myself to make more of an effort to see him, to not upset him by not seeing him, and that hits home quite hard. But the worst part of it all, I've got to say, was when I returned to school the following September, and I told like my friends, obviously, so that they could be there for me, and it spread around my school that my dad had died, and I was already getting bullied at this point anyway. And this one boy in my maths class came up to me in my face and went, "Your dad's dead because you're such an ugly bitch," basically. And then the bullying started a lot more severely to do with my dad, and that set my depression off, and it set it off pretty bad, to be honest. Then in 2009, my dad died in 2008, 2009 in July, I moved schools to a different school in a different area, and I thought that the bullying would all stop, but it didn't, and it carried on, and I slipped into a massive depression, and along with all that came my self-harming, and basically it escalated to a point where I didn't want to be alive, and that is a really lonely place to be. However, I didn't ever act on it at that point. I carried on with my life and tried to show them that it didn't bother me, and I hid my cuts and everything. Now, I did my entire wrists, and I still have some of the scars from that now, and I got picked on a lot because in PE I used to wear long sleeve tops, and then my teachers one day told me that I wasn't allowed to wear that anymore, and it kind of took my security away. My depression got so bad to a point where I started college last year, 2012, and in October I overdosed. I'd been with my partner for almost 3 years and we broke up. We'd had our ups and downs, but we broke up, and I lost everything that made sense, and I overdosed and ended up in hospital. So and right now I'm glad that I survived. I'm glad that I was alright, because my life has got so much better in such literally a short space of time since October last year to now. But I remember feeling like I was always alone, and that I couldn't talk to anyone because nobody would understand me, and that kind of like everything I did was never good enough for anyone, and I didn't want to get up, and I didn't think that I had any friends, and I didn't want to go out, and I didn't want to do anything at all. And I didn't actually tell my mum until, well, she had to find out. I was told I was harmed to myself, and I was threatened with going into a psychiatric unit for help, and that's when I kind of felt like I had to talk to my mum about it. So I did, and do you know what? She was a massive support for me, and my whole family was, actually. But I'm glad that I spoke to someone, because even though I was terrified that my mum would feel like it was her fault, and that she would yell at me and she'd hate me basically just like everyone else did, and she didn't. So I know what it feels like to not feel like you have anyone there that cares, but I promise you that you do. You just don't see it because you're so scared, because it's such a taboo topic, and I don't think it should be a taboo topic anymore. It's a serious problem that needs to be dealt with, because more and more people each year are losing their lives because they don't feel like they have anyone to talk to. And it's sad. It is really sad. Piece by piece I started to get my life back on track, and I stopped myself harming, and I got help. I got psychotherapy 2 times a week for my problems, and honestly, I'd had counsellors in the past, and this was the best therapy I think it was for me, because I felt like other people kind of understood me. I was being treated like an adult, and that made a big difference to me, because it wasn't like I was just some kid with some messed up head. It was like they actually cared to sit down, and they wanted to talk to me, and they wanted to help me and make me feel better. And I don't think without that I would be here. The message I'm trying to give to you in this is that at no point in your life are you ever alone. Even if you think you are alone, you are not. I mean, I'm a stranger on the internet that posts video feeds about things, and I'm such a quirky character, and you wouldn't believe that less than a year ago I was suffering deep depression, where I tried to take my own life. And I kind of feel like I could make a difference if I just let everyone know that they're not alone, that there is always someone you can talk to. There's always a place you can go, like a counsellor, your parents, really close friends that you trust, and just talk. Now, I want you to think about your life and what parts of your life are so bad, and I want you to write your problems down, and I want you to eliminate them one by one, and I promise you your life will piece itself back together, and you will be okay. You always will be okay. Thank you for watching, and I hope that I have helped someone out there to kind of feel better about things, I guess. And thanks for watching, guys.